Yesterday, man, I had lunch with a good friend of mine, 3rd degree black belt with jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
His name is Val Laralde. Mexican guy. Guy's a beast. 6'4". Got to be 240, 250 pounds in shape.
You spar with this guy?
Oh, yeah. He's the first guy that I discovered Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So you're talking about that sushi place you were at where they recognized you?
Yeah, well, they recognized Jeff Goldblum, thinking I was him.
I'm coming out of this sushi place with my good friend Derek.
Okay.
Derek, you'll meet Derek. He used to be my head of security for Toby Keats, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go.
I know.
Look at that.
That's St. Joseph's.
St. Joseph's.
That's what we have
got
right
put one
there.
of those on the table. We got to whack this one up right now.
Yeah, that one you could whack up. These you can't.
So
Michael,
anyway,
you going to grab one of these?
Yeah. So anyway, I come out of the sushi joint with Derek.
Yeah.
And, you know, Derek's a wrestler, fighter.
He's a big fella.
Oh, the guy's another beast, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I see jiu-jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu on the, no, it was a Pedro Sal. Oh, there we go.
That's them.
You know, to see it on TV, you know, it doesn't do it justice in person, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyways, I see he was a black belt under Pedro Sal.
Okay.
Pedro Sal was another acclaimed original gangster jiu-jitsu guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So we walk over. I asked Derek, I said, what's that? He said, that's the best stuff you can learn. I said, really? I said, I took martial arts, you know, as a kid. I said, and I busted my knee. I got a torn cartilage. He says, no, this thing it's all ground fighting, which I never did before. I walk in, and there's Val on the floor with another guy, and they're rolling around. I don't even know what they're doing. And I told him, I said, hey, nice to meet you and stuff. And he goes, I said, hey, I have a bum knee. Can I train? He goes, yeah, you could train. He said, we sit down on the floor, and we teach how to fight from the ground because 90% of the fights go to the ground.
Right. That makes sense. Jesus.
I never thought of that, but it did make sense because back in New York, there was all boxing gyms on every corner. So you were either a boxer or not, you know. But there was no wrestling schools or, you know, jiu-jitsu or, you know, if it went to the ground, maybe you got a guy in a headlock or you rolled around the floor, but nobody knew what they were doing on the ground. And plus, nobody knew how to choke you out or put you in an arm bar or grapple and manipulate your joints. I mean, this Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you could paralyze somebody, you know, and really defend yourself too. That's what it's for. So I started, and basically he said, look, we're going to go through a class. You're going to know if this is for you or not. So I signed the waiver. Mm-hmm. I went there with no gi. Man, I tell you, because you got to get used to somebody putting pressure on you. In other words, jiu-jitsu is about being under pressure and reacting under pressure.
Pressure points or explain?
For example, he told me, he says, come at me any way you want.
Okay.
I said, well, I don't want to hit you or nothing. He goes, no, come at me any way you want. Put the guy up there, the guy that I trained with, his name is Jacques Machado. Jacques. It's spelled Jaques, Machado. He's the guy who taught Joe Rogan. And we'll get into it. I'm very good friends with Jacques. He's got his own podcast. I spoke to him, you know, I speak to him all the time. But he's my instructor that I'm ranked under, you know. And we had a school together out in California. That got burnt up in a fire. I'll explain that later. I didn't stick a Molotov in the window. It was a legit fire that came from the hills in Malibu.
Okay,
and
yeah,
blew
that's
the place
commonplace up there nowadays.
So anyway, I signed the waiver. Go at him any way you can. I mean, throw punches. He says, no, just come at me wrestling any way you can. So I went at him. Before you know it, in 3 seconds, I'm on the floor. He's got me in side control. Side control is when you put pressure on someone and you control them, you know. And I couldn't breathe. I was just, so when you can't breathe or you give up, just tap. It's very important that you tap, he said, because, you know, guys panic. Man, what a taking used to a guy. There he is. There's the man. He's world-renowned. Jacques Machado. What a good, I mean, I'm biased. To me, he's, you know, best instructor you could have. But the way he lives his life as a friend and as a person, this guy's character he's just a good soul.
Really?
Yeah, and a tough guy. Not like a guy who's...
You got to know.
No, he is... He's no joke. And a lot of wisdom too. He's got a lot of wisdom. He has one hand is he's missing like 4 fingers.
Really?
4 or 5 fingers on. And that's what he chokes everybody with. He's able to sneak under.
Wow.
Like really sneaky.
He took a disability and made it.
Oh no, disability.
Part of his
he
whole
created
thing.
He created a whole technique that's used today in the UFC and everywhere in the world.
Wow.
Huh. He still travels all over the world till this day. I was fortunate enough to meet him, and I was trained with him for years privately.
Wow.
Anyways, back to what I was saying, I fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Because I said, you know what? It put me in a position that I felt I had no control, and I didn't like that feeling.
Right.
Nobody likes that feeling to be out of control or something, right?
No kidding.
So I went religiously every day. And we used to grapple, and then I started getting better and better. And before you know it, I made it up to the ranks. Then I met Jacques, and then I was trained out here with Steve Rosenburg, who's another guy's a terror on the mat.
And that's out here.
Yeah,
that's good.
You'll meet him.
Yeah,
guy is another good person, very family friendly. Consider him family.
Nice. The
way he lives his life, guy's a tough guy. He's just a good soul, Nothing shady about him at all. 4th degree black belt. He's got like 400 or 500 students under him out here. Guy's another acclaimed black belt who's known, is very good. What I'm getting at is you will see the transformation. I got to kick this cold. I got to get rid of these allergies, right? Yeah. The weather gets better, and I'm back on the mat. I bought all my gis. I bought all my knee braces. You got to buy tape because my elbow's screwed up. My toes got turf toe. My toes jammed. My fingers. Because through the years, grappling and stuff takes a toll on your body.
Yeah.
But you will see the transformation. And right now, I'm just enjoying myself. So we got the fiado, the lobster tail, and then we got the fiado.
Don't mispronounce it.
I don't. Yeah. This shit, there's no other way to eat it. Man.
Chewing in everyone's ear right now. That's delicious. I'm glad I stopped there today.
Yeah, they're fresh too.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
How you like that?
Sorry. I'm going to eat another bite.
These are the best 2 in the morning with a morning coffee. They do a good job out here, this bakery.
You said something the other day. You talked about black coffee. Not a cup of black coffee, but black coffee. You referred to what we call demi-tasse. Is that correct? You notice I got a full mouth here. But it was interesting that you said that. Because that's what my nanny used to say. You want black coffee or brown coffee? The brown coffee was the American coffee. The black coffee was made on the stove in the demi-tasse pot. We called it demi-tasse.
The first time I had black coffee, I was a kid. There was a club on Mulberry and Kenmare. Sonny Pinto. You know who Sonny Pinto is?
The name sounds familiar.
He's the one who killed Joe Gallo and Umberto's.
Okay.
Our families were very tight. Sonny Pinto's whole family was close with my family. So I would go to his club. My grandfather, my step-grandfather, Joe Russo, they used to call him Fatty, was his nickname. Again, they did a little thing on him, and I want to correct the things that they said about the guy, because, again, they're just getting court records and things like that.
And that's not all.
He had a tailor shop across the street on Mulberry and Kenmare, right across from the club where I'm telling you about.
Yeah.
It was called 1 Hour Martinizing. So they did spot cleaning and dry cleaning.
I remember those.
Remember those?
All over Manhattan.
Yeah. So him and his brother Curly was his nickname. Curly Russo.
Curly.
So it was Anthony Russo. Curly Russo was, he went on to be a maid guy with the Lucchese family. And he went on to be a captain. And then he went on to be an underboss.
Wow.
Rumor had it he was trying to take over the family at one time with Buddy Luongo. Buddy used to call the Bear. Anyway, there was a whole history to that. I'll get into the details, but buddy eventually wound up getting whacked. My step-uncle came real close to getting whacked, but I guess somehow they spared his life. Anyways, back to the point I'm trying to make. The club across the street on Mulberry and Kent, before Sonny Pinto owned it, they said that it was Lucky Luciano's club. Like, that's where the original founders of the five families came out of, was Mulberry and Kembe. Well, later on through the years, what I'm talking about, I must have been, 8, 9 years old. When I would get out of school, I would either walk home or I would go to the cleaners, we used to call it. Drop my school bags there. They had a back room where we used to play, and there was a bathroom back there, and then we would wait there until, my mother or father, somebody picked us up. It was a safe place to be.
Gotcha.
One day I walk across the street, and my Uncle Jakey Corallo, his brother was Jimmy 92. Jimmy 92 was a made guy with the Lucchese family. I'm going back, he was made maybe in the 50s, if not definitely for sure in the 70s.
I'm going to stop you. How is he named Jimmy 92?
I got no idea.
Okay.
No idea what
but
92
everybody had a
stood for.
nickname. That's the key.
That's a good question. I'm going to ask that.
Yeah. I'd love to know the answer to that, because it's intriguing that so many of us had nicknames back then.
He was very close to Tony Ducks.
Okay.
Tony Ducks Corallo was the boss of the Lucchese family. I don't know if he was the boss at that time, but he was very close with Tony Ducks and Tom Mix. Tom Mix was his underboss. So Jimmy 92 was a made guy. Uncle Jakey wasn't a made guy, but he was due to be made. The books were closed at that time. I didn't know. Now I learn about it.
Yeah.
Well, my Uncle Jakey, suit every day with no tie. Sometimes a tie, sometimes no tie, but always a sport jacket and a fedora, like the old timers used to wear.
Yeah.
He would sit there. So the black coffee you're talking about, he would make it in a big Faberware pot. The old school Faberware?
Yeah.
Right? I don't know how many pots he used to drink a day. Rumor had it 2 pots, 3 pots, maybe 5 pots, but all day long. And he had the other coffee, the demi-tasse.
Yep.
The old school espresso.
Yep.
So when I was a kid, I went in there, I walked over to him, show him respect. Every time you see somebody who's your uncle or step-uncle or not even related, you show respect. You walk over, you shake hands, you kiss them, you hug them, whatever.
Yep.
He says, sit down, he said. He was drinking coffee. He pours me a cup of coffee. Black coffee. No sugar, nothing. Took the sip. It's terrible. Spit it out.
Yep.
He starts laughing. Don't worry, he said, I'll make it better. Put some cream, some milk, put some sugar,
Yep.
And then it was drinkable.
He made it drinkable, yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
The first experience with black coffee.
I get it.
The pastry's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. They're so good. I'm taking a bite. There's enough powdered sugar on it, It's all over me.
I don't want to chop in their ear.
Yeah, I know. I was doing the same thing. Again, you can talk about pastries and food and every other thing that we do, in our Italian traditions, if you will. I mean, just sitting here having this conversation, eat lunch 1 minute, and then, we're out having pastries and coffee today. It's just, how many stories do you have about, like, with people where you've been, where you talked about, old time, now time, whatever, just over a coffee and a pastry? How many conversations do you think you've had? I mean, growing up, that's when it was coffee time, it was a big thing.
Coffee and pastries are mandatory. Think about it. It's a mandatory activity. Even back home. There was always room for coffee and cake.
Yeah. Well, you had to. If there was company over, we called it company. You break out the pastries. Some people had other kind of Entenmann sitting on the counter when Mom's house. But we all had some kind of, there was a coffee time, if you will. Yeah, that's beautiful.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
It was in 1993 or 94.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the floor with gas. MCC. On 7 North. I think it was 7 North, 7 South, but they had 2 sides to it. With cellmates. Got a corner cell. Back then, the Colombo War, everybody was getting pinched.
Yeah.
So they had them on separation. They had the Persico guys separate from the Vic Arena guys. Well, the Vic Arena guys they had on the same floor with us. The Vic Arena guys at that time was Wild Bill.
I remember that name.
Kid Chicky DiMartino was there. Wild Bill was on the floor with us. All the guys that were involved with that case. Persico guys were on a different floor, whatever. And his coffee's good. There's that little vanilla tint to it.
Vanilla hazelnut.
Hazelnut, nice. I get back from court because I'm fighting my gun case. I was only facing 1 to 3. I was on the case with Bones. He wants to be called Frankie Sharp.
Why? Why?
He wants people to think he's smarter than what he is. I don't know why. He was never happy
Frankie
with
Sharp.
never happy with the name Bones.
Okay.
Bones fits him perfect. Tall guy, 6'2", bigger Bones. Skinny guy. If you look at him, you say, yeah, Bones. You never think Sharp. So he made that up.
Okay.
Wants to be called Frankie Sharp.
It's not an official nickname if you make
You
it
don't
up.
give yourself a nickname.
That's exactly right. Somebody has to give you that nickname.
Yeah, the reason why I never got a nickname is because my last name was like my nickname, Gioia.
Yeah.
I used to go Frankie Gioia, you know? So I never really got a nickname. But when you get a nickname, somebody gives you a nickname, Bones, right? And then you decide you don't like it. You can't get up and start going, no, call me Frankie Sharp.
Nobody's going to call you that.
No. So the guy was, so anyway.
Especially the people who gave you that nickname. Your Bones.
Because you know what it is? The guy was so, I look back now, not to get, I don't want to go on a rant,
Yeah.
you know, but the guy was so insecure with himself and so manipulative. A manipulator.
Interesting.
A manipulator with a capital M.
Really?
What's the definition, Mike, of a manipulator?
Let's look it up. A manipulator is someone who uses deception or underhanded tactics to control or influence others for their own personal gain, often unfairly or dishonestly.
Okay. That's what Frankie Bones Papagni is. Okay. So I was my co-defendant on a gun case. I was going back and forth to state court fighting it. I get back from court. Gas is waiting for me. Well, Wild Bill meets me at the door. He made this nice risotto for us.
Nice.
Now, it wasn't real. It was like a jailhouse version of risotto.
Best he can do to come up with it, right?
The guy had every good intention. Like, he made it. He spent hours making it. All the Colombo guys were like, hey, we want you to eat with us. This is for you and Gas. So he gave me a nice big bowl of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I walk in the room. There's Gas. Living with Gas was like living with Dracula.
This we have to hear, Frank.
Scary guy.
Yeah.
Okay? And the cleanest, this guy was such, what do you call a person who's overly, I mean.
Like OCD?
OCD?
Oh, I mean bad. Like let's say, for example, right?
I have a little of that.
See this? No. You see this right now?
Yeah.
If
It
he
would
was
drive
here,
him crazy.
If he was here, drive him nuts.
Yeah.
He would lift your glass up, start spraying it, clean it, put a coaster on it.
Oh, I would have never guessed that about him. This is going to get interesting.
Nuts. You put something down on the locker without a coaster, forget it. Guy
He had
go.
coasters in
He
the
would make
cell.
them. No, he would make them.
He would make them.
He
Okay.
would make the coasters. They're all him. All like made out of cardboard boxes,
Okay.
whatever the hell he got them from, right?
Yeah.
God forbid you put your coffee cup on the table like that. First off, when you walked in the cell, you had to take your shoes off.
Okay.
Okay, which I understand.
Yeah.
You put your slippers on or whatever, right?
Yeah.
The wax on the floor was this thick. Every day.
He did that?
Every day.
Wow.
He would wax it, put a coat of wax. Thing was shiny. Couldn't believe. The vent inside the cell. Okay. You know one of those bounce
Dryer sheet thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would always have like a fresh slice of bounce tied to the vent.
Okay.
So the room smelled nice.
Smelled nice, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, the cell was like, I'm telling you, I say, I've never, and I sold with a lot of guys, right? Never seen anybody this clean.
I wouldn't have guessed that. Well, what you know and read about the guy, you wouldn't figure that.
Sonny, everything he did.
How do you go to the toilet in front of a guy like that? I
Well,
know
you
it's
don't.
right there in the cell. So what
But
do
you
you, what
don't.
do
You have the times you do that.
Yeah.
But if it's an emergency,
not when-
okay. Here's an example.
Yeah.
When he went and did number one,
Yeah, take a leak.
where you take a leak, right?
Yeah,
You stand up, right?
99% of the time. Yeah, unless you're drunk, you got to sit down.
He would sit down.
What?
Yeah.
Sit down every time.
Everybody, you heard me right. Gaspipe would sit down to take a leak.
Well, that kind of makes sense because there's no splatter. And obviously having OCD and being a clean freak, that's what he saw.
Well, I tell you what,
Did he make you do the same?
I still do it till today. I'm not embarrassed to say.
No. Why should you be? You may get a little wet, but
No, well, listen to this. When you do number two,
yeah, you're sitting
you're doing number one anyway, too, right?
pretty much. Yeah.
Most of the time.
But he did it for a clean sense, is
Yeah.
what I'm getting from this conversation.
Yeah. And another thing, too.
Think about it. It makes sense. I'll be doing that from here on out.
It's proven to be.
In fact, I got to go
I
now.
think there's.
No, I'm
I
just
think there's
kidding.
science behind it. It's proven to be healthier.
That's why I was just looking it up. It's actually good for your prostate.
I would imagine it would make you go easier.
If you have a prostate issue, it
helps.
It's easier for you to go
The flow.
with the flow. Good way to put it.
Automatically, you're sitting down. It's a relaxed position your body's used to instead of standing up.
So, I'm taking a leak.
Mhm.
Normally.
Yeah.
And after a few drops hit the rim of the bowl,
Oh.
I'm wiping it off and everything, right?
Mhm.
He come right in after that with a spray bottle of disinfectant,
I don't mean to laugh, but
spray the
it's
thing
awesome.
down. And he goes, please, look, can you sit down when you take a piss? I go, what? So I said, you know what? Let me try this.
Yeah.
Until today, that's what I do. It's cleaner.
It is 100%.
You don't got to worry about lift. When you're living in a house with all women,
Women
my
in
ex,
general, yeah.
my two daughters,
Yeah.
even the dogs are girls,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
You don't got to worry about lifting the toilet seat
Or putting it back down.
or putting it back down.
Yeah, for them. Yeah.
It's all there for you.
Yeah. You just sit.
Yeah.
It makes incredible sense.
Plus, you're not whizzing on the
You're
floor in the
not-
middle of
yeah,
the night.
You're not
It's
splashing
dark.
the floor.
What if you got your phone in your hand? You're texting. I mean, how you gonna?
After a few drinks, I have to sit
You can't
because I
miss.
can't. I'll be.
Yeah.
It's the middle of the night. You're right. You're gonna
I mean, the
make it
water's
a little bit of a
cold
mess.
when it drips in there, but
Yeah.
When you
So I
sit-
said you might get wet.
When you sit down and do number two, you automatically do number one.
I'm gonna go right now. No, just kidding. I gotta no.
Back to the risotto. I walk in all excited.
Yeah,
I'm hungry. I just came from court.
he ain't letting you eat that.
Walk in and I go like this time. I says, hey. He said, what's that? I says, hey, Wild Bill and them made this for us. It's risotto. He said, throw it out.
Of course he did.
I said, for what are you on? I'm hungry. Throw it out. He says, give me that. Flush it down the effing bowl. He said, throw it out.
Throw it out.
I said, but they made
They
it.
made it. Yeah.
F Wild Bill, throw it out. All right. Go by the bowl. Dump the thing. If Italy, we don't say I don't like it. We say mi fa, which means it makes me.
Yeah.
So he says, throw it out. So I go like this. I said, all right, well, now we're going to eat. He said, whatever you want. It's okay. I want Billy Hong's.
Who? Benny Hanna?
No, not Billy Hanna. It was called Bill Hong's.
Bill Hong's. Okay.
Bill Hong's was on 3rd Avenue and 57th Street in Manhattan.
It's uptown.
The place was famous for its lobster rolls.
Really?
They would make these big size egg rolls, they look like, right?
Okay.
With all lobster meat inside.
Sounds delicious.
This place was so famous for the lobster rolls that Frank Sinatra, at the time when there was no internet or nothing,
Mhm.
he would send his pilot or whatever, his assistant, fly from California, take his jet from California, fly into New York City. What he would bring back is, let's say, 20 or 40 lobster rolls and then pizza from Patsy's up in
Yeah.
the original one up in Harlem. And how I know this is because the owner, Billy Hongs, became good friends with my grandfather, Nunzi, who was my mother's biological dad. Not her stepdad. Her stepdad was Fatty Russo,
Right.
but her biological dad was Nunzi. Anyways, I'm in there. I used to go to Billy Hongs once a week, either with my grandfather or somebody, you know. And the guy that ran the place was Ming, his name was.
Okay.
Ming.
I like it.
Chinese guy. But man, it was, if they made like steak Q, it would be with filet mignon.
Wow.
If they made like almond chicken, all white meat. If they made anything, right, it was all high quality protein.
Yeah.
Just the difference in the food there was second to none.
Did you get it?
So I told myself, I want Billy Hongs.
Yeah.
All right, he said, close the door. I closed the door. I put the board up because, you know, you make a board, you cut out a board out of like a cake box. We used to get the little Debbie cake boxes, and they fit perfect in covering the cell door. Right?
Yeah.
He pulls out a Motorola flip phone, like a track phone.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day.
Yeah.
Calls up Billy Hongs, puts an order in. He goes, what do you want? I said, I want lobster rolls, steak Q, sweet and sour chicken, cellophane noodles. He said, yeah, throw some shrimp fried rice in there. I want this, I want that. He orders a whole bunch of stuff. And he hangs up the phone, calls another guy, who I didn't know at the time was a cop, a guard that worked inside the MCC.
Okay.
He says, hey, go do that pickup. I just ordered from Billy Hongs. He said, I'll be ready at 8 o'clock. Guy goes, gotcha.
It's awesome.
Now, in federal prison, they have stand-up counts. 4 o'clock count's the most important because that goes straight to Washington.
Wow.
They count how many inmates are there. Then you got the 9 o'clock count, and then 11 o'clock count, but you're already locked in, you know, your cell. And the other counts that go on through the night, you're sleeping. And in the morning, wherever you are, they count you. But they're counting in there 5-6 times a day. So 9 o'clock count comes around. Everybody goes to their cell. Who comes in? They open our door. Cop walks in with 2 bags, full bags from Billy Hongs, and goes, delivery, drops them right in the middle of our cell.
That's wild, bro.
So I'm looking at him, starving, right?
Sure.
He goes, come on, let's eat. I ate like a gavone. Just forget it, right?
That's incredible.
I go, where we ordering from tomorrow? So we had enough food there for about 2 or 3 days. We kept it on ice.
I bet.
We kept it like, you know, fresh and everything. Then he calls up. He says, hey, we get some cigars. You know, he said, you want to get some cigars? You want to get some whatever? I don't drink.
Right.
I never did drink on the street. I mean, I would drink a little bit here and there, but I never got drunk where I never knew what I was doing. I always wanted to be aware of everything, you know?
Right.
So she says, yeah. So another bag comes in. Cuban cigars, liquor, scotch. You had cigarettes there because there was currency.
Right.
Magazines, all stuff from the street. Like a goodie bag showed up every night. So anyway, after that food ran out, goes, what do you want? Well, Peter Luger's. You heard of Peter Luger's, right?
Yeah, of course.
Steakhouse.
Been there a few times, yeah.
Calls up, orders Peter Luger's, cream spinach, T-bones, the fries, the onion rings, the home-style potatoes, the whole thing.
I remember them.
The point I'm trying to make is he was so paranoid of anybody putting anything in his food. He wouldn't take a drink from anybody. He wouldn't eat off anybody's plate. Nothing. Nobody. He was very paranoid like that. I benefited from it because he was getting all the food in there.
Yeah.
And they were smoking cigars. We had another guy with us on the floor from our crew, Anthony Bowat. Barada. The way it's spelt, B-O-W-A-T-T, a lot of people get it wrong. How would you pronounce it?
B-O-W-A-T-T. Bowat. Right? How else would you pronounce it?
These guys were screwed up. We call him Anthony Bowat. Bowat.
Yeah.
You know? I hear people on the internet go, Bowata, Bowat. I go, they don't know.
They don't
know. You know? So Anthony Bowat was downstairs because it had 2 levels of the tier. So we were on the upper tier, and if you went down a few steps, they had a lower tier. Well, Anthony Bowat was an avid cigar smoker. He could tell you everything about the cigar. You could give him a blind test. You could put that guy with a blind test.
And he'd know the cigar.
You could blind him up and give him the cigar. I'll tell you which one is the Cuban, which one's the better one.
Huh.
I mean, the guy lived. I mean, he knew the finer things in life. Originally a Harlem guy.
Okay.
Big junk guy. Made a ton of money. One of the richest guys ever in the mob. One of the nicest guys you can meet. And a tough guy. So you talk about when you get both,
Mm-hmm.
you get a guy that's a tough guy and is a moneymaker.
Yeah.
Anthony Bowat's another one of them.
Okay.
I shared a cell with him up in Otisville. I'll get into that later on. But the way he lived and the way he likes to live and stuff. But Anthony Bowat, that guy was a pleasure. It was a pleasure and an honor to be around him.
That's cool.
You know? So back to Gas.
Yeah.
Now on the floor. So he used to get the cigars in for Bowat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we used to smoke and hang out and, you know, maybe take a sip of a drink here and there and just reminisce and talk about the street, talk about the life. Then we used to go to church. So in church, you were allowed to meet up with all the other guys because everybody came from the floors. So Big Frankie Lastarino was on the 11th floor.
Okay.
Richie Pagalulo was on another floor. They used to call him the Toop. So that's where we would all meet.
At church.
Yeah, so me, Gas, and Bowat used to walk up, and then Big Frankie used to come down with Richie Toop and, you know, everybody else. We would all congregate there. The priest couldn't even give the mass because that's how noisy it was.
Yeah.
Because everybody wanted to get Gas's ear, you know?
Makes sense. Yeah.
So finally the priest would look at him. Anytime like he's trying to tell everybody to hush, he would just stare at Anthony.
And get Anthony to tell everybody to shut up. Yeah.
Looking at Anthony going, would you tell everybody just to, you know, I want to get through
You're
this.
in charge, aren't you?
Right. They could tell he was
That
in
makes
charge.
sense. Yeah.
So we go downstairs, and the more messages that were coming back from the street, because there was a new administration at that time,
Okay. Yeah. Things were changing.
and the guys they put there were, I mean, it was almost an insult to guys like Bowat, Gas, Big Frankie, you know? Like when I was on the street, that's who was out there.
Right.
These guys
Those
were
are the guys you talked with.
Now they go put Joe DeFede, little Joe DeFede, who was Vic's handball partner.
Okay.
That's how you know him. Guy was never street guy, never nothing.
Not a true mobster.
No. So it was like an insult. They had nobody. You talk about attrition, they had nobody left.
Wow.
They put him on a panel, Stevie Crea, which I got to give Crea his props. Stevie Crea is a Bronx guy.
Okay.
Never had a really good relationship with him. Never had a bad relationship with him. I really didn't get to know the guy. They had us try to kill him.
Really?
Yeah, we're plotting to kill him for whatever stupid reason. I'll get into that later.
Yeah.
The guy today, I got to give him his props. You know, it's a sin. He's dying in jail right now.
Wow.
He's got life. He's never getting out. Got nothing bad to say about the guy.
Man, that's tough.
You know, but I can tell you, he wasn't a Gaspipe. He wasn't a Big Frankie. He wasn't a Anthony Bowat. Stevie Crea held his own for the Bronx. In the Bronx, we were the weakest. If that made any sense. The Bronx guys were not a good representative of the Lucchese's in the Bronx.
Of what the Lucchese family really was.
Right. So the Genovese out there, strong.
Mm-hmm.
Bananos, strong. Gambino, strong. Colombo, I don't know if they had a few guys out there, maybe. But everybody that had a crew out there, right? Our crew was not a good representative of what the Lucchese family really was.
In the Bronx.
Not what Brooklyn
interesting.
was.
Yeah, different
not
story
compared to
in
Brooklyn.
the other boroughs.
Right. Queens, whatever.
Well, that's a great story about Gas. I mean, Anthony was, I would have never guessed he's that, OCD or, but if you think about it, the guy, another smart guy. I mean, so he was afraid of germs. I don't blame him.
Wow. We're on the floor.
Yeah.
He's getting so pissed off because Vic Amuso, he was the boss. He broke Gas. Breaking meaning not on the boss no more.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much tried to turn the whole family against him. The same thing to Big Frankie. Same thing to Bowat. All the guys that were out there with Gas. And then he put this other guy, Danny Cataya.
Okay.
The Catayas, and again, I just shake my head. Cataya was a nice guy, but never, especially his son. His son was a joke. I don't want, let me take this back. I don't want this to be a hate channel.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to start bashing guys.
You're calling them for who they are. I mean, you're not mocking them in any way. You're just saying it the way it was. You're used to true mobsters like Gaspipe and Bones and all these other guys. And here these other guys come along and you're looking at them like, you can't shine these guys' shoes. So you're not, I don't think you're being terrible at it. I think you're just telling me how you
We're
feel.
comparing gangsters, right?
Yeah.
So they had put a panel in place. It was this Joe DeFeedy.
Okay.
They call him Little Joe DeFeedy. Stevie Wonder, we used to call him, Stevie Crea from the Bronx.
Okay.
And you had Danny Cataya from the Canarsie crew. Now, let me tell you about the three guys compared to Gaspipe, Big Frankie, Lester Reno, and Anthony Bowat. Okay? Night and day. So Joe DeFeedy was just like a handball partner because Vic loved to play handball. And that's how he got familiar with Vic. But never had a reputation, never had any kind of street creds at all. Just got put there because of attrition and because I guess they had no other body. Nobody will listen to him, I guess.
He didn't earn that position, basically, is what you're saying. And by doing anything to get that position, most guys earned it when they came up like Gas.
See, when Gas was on the street, there was a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
But the guys that he had on the street were Big Frankie and Bowat. So anybody that was Gaspipe, Vic, they were in jail anyway.
Yeah.
But he made sure he replaced them. And Stevie Crea, I got to say, out of the three, I would say he had the most creds. Guy was a big money maker for the family with construction.
Okay.
But he was also a capable guy. Like the guy wasn't a punk.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't a standout guy like a Gaspipe or like these other guys I'm talking about. But for the Bronx, there was nothing wrong with him. I mean, it was a good representation of the Lucchese's. And to be honest with you, our Bronx faction of the Lucchese's, right, was not a good representative of what the family really was about. You take all the other families, you take the Genovese, you take the Gambino, the Bananos, everybody was way stronger than us representing as far as what guys were up there
in the Bronx,
than the Bronx guys. Bronx guys were not like the Brooklyn guys. No comparison.
Wow.
I would say out of the three, the most respect that I would have for any of them was Stevie Crea. But if you give me a Gas, a Big Frankie, a Bowat, Georgie Neck, even Georgie Conti, give me guys like that all day long. I take those guys over.
These are the original guys that kind of brought it all together for a lot of people.
Take a guy like Georgie Neck.
Yeah.
Okay? The guy, he's been through it. He earned everything he has today, he earned. He grew up in it. He dedicated his whole life to it. And, he's a disciple really of Gaspipe. So Gas, he was Gas's guy.
That makes sense. That's why he is who he is. Huh?
And don't forget, Gas, Georgie grew up in it because Georgie's father was a maid guy with the Genovese family.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They used to call his father Georgie Rush. His father was a good guy, tough guy. I don't know what happened. I know what happened with the story as to why he got killed, for the reason why he got killed, which I think was a stupid reason. But they chopped his father's head off. One day, I don't know where it was, it rolled up on some shoreline or something, and they found his father's head dismembered.
Jeez.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
And I guess after that, they did a temperature check. They called him in to feel him out.
Yep.
Because they were ready to kill him too. Because that's what they do. They want to see how you feel about it.
Right.
If they call him in, I guess he gave the right answers. They let him go.
It's interesting they let him go.
Well, at that time, they didn't think he was a threat.
Okay.
Don't forget, he wasn't seeking revenge. He didn't show he wasn't in the street. He should just hang out in Bensonhurst, Staten Island, Bensonhurst, wherever. I don't know exactly where, but I used to think he ran like a milk store or something, something called the Cowbound, whatever it was. Anyway, he was just a good kid, So I guess he gave all the right answers, and they figured, well, there's no reason to kill him because he's not a threat. He's not looking for revenge.
Yeah.
He then took off and went to Jersey and laid low. Man, never wanted to be involved with the life. Got married, had a kid, and he just did the right thing.
And they let him alone.
Let him alone and let it be.
Yep.
What happens now? Gaspipe loved the father, Vic and Gas.
Yep.
Because the father was a real guy. They went out there, and Gas was like, come on, this ain't you. You know, I remember Georgie telling me, Gas would be like, come on, this ain't you.
Yeah.
And Georgie's like, no, I got my wife, I got my kid.
Had a whole new
I'm
life.
good.
I didn't want to give that up.
And he would have been okay with that.
Yeah.
Because Georgie, I know Georgie very well. Georgie's a laid back guy. He doesn't, he's not like he never got compulsive with anything. Wasn't like a guy like that was
Level-headed
greedy.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He was laid back. He wasn't a greedy guy. Wasn't a manipulator. Wasn't just I couldn't have a better captain. It's a shame that he really didn't get to captain the crew because he was on America's Most Wanted.
Right.
He was on the lam. So he couldn't be like right next to me. But I couldn't have a better captain.
That's good.
So Gas brought him back and created a monster. Turned him into a monster. Monster meaning like
He did what was necessary at that point in that life. That he
you would
chose.
never.
But Gas edged him on, or egged him on, I should say.
He always had it in him because he had the bloodline, right? And Gas knew that. But when Gas brought him back, he turned him into a beast.
That's good.
But the nicest guy you could meet, you would underestimate him.
Really?
Yeah, you would be like, oh, how guys get, they look at you, because he wasn't a fighter with his hands. Wasn't nothing but, man, kill you in a minute. Not 2 seconds. Won't even think about it. Doesn't need a drink. Some guys, they need a Heineken to fight Germany.
Yeah, I get it.
Right?
I get it.
Well, let me go do a line of Coke and then I'll be ready.
Yeah.
This guy, I don't care where it is, when it is, he'll pull out and blow your head off. Wow. No problem. But a good guy, like a guy that is reason, like to me, he's more, I want to say, Gas was dangerous, but Gas wasn't level-headed. Gas was sharp and he knew the rules, right? Mm-hmm. And he didn't play by them. But Georgie Neck has all that knowledge. He's got all that wisdom from Gas. Mm. And then you mix it up with his personality and whatever he picked up. He's a sharp guy. He's the quietest guy. He's the guy in the room where he's the quietest guy in the room. Yep. The one you got to...
The ones they say you got to watch out for.
Right.
That's really what it is.
So
the quiet guys.
He's that guy.
They're thinking.
He's the quietest guy in the room that you would never suspect. And all of a sudden, he just turns into this...
beast.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I'm hearing he's running... Either he has the top spot or he's next in line for the top spot, which he earned it.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody out there like that today. I heard Mikey DeSantis, he is the guy. Mm-hmm. To me, Mikey DeSantis, again, you couldn't have a better guy there. Because Mikey's a guy, Mikey DeSantis too. When he was on the street, tough guy, do whatever you want him to do. When he was in jail, the way he conducted himself, was like a man's man. Because a lot of the guys I was running to in jail, right? They were big reputations on the street or they had a title on the street. And then when they get inside, they're a wreck. Yeah. A total mess where you look at them and you go, you can never look at them the same.
Yeah, it's not the same guy anymore. Yeah.
I don't care. They're going to say, yeah, well, you ratted, you cooperated, you this. Who the hell are you to talk? I don't care how much time you did. I don't care. The way they did their time.
Yeah.
Some of those guys I would never look at. Yeah, okay, they didn't tell, they didn't cooperate, they didn't do that. I'll give you that, okay? But it didn't make them any better because the way they did their time was a total embarrassment to themselves and the organization, the way they conducted themselves.
Yeah, and I guess at that point, that's kind of, people are watching you to see.
I'll give you an example. They used to like to always compare Anthony Bowat to Sally Avellino.
Okay.
Sally Avellino was, they nicknamed him the golfer. So every time we were in jail, he used to swing like he had an imaginary golf club in his hand. And I mean, he'd do the whole full swing,
The
whole.
yeah, the whole swing.
I don't play golf, but he would do the whole like you
Like he
know?
was practicing.
Yeah, like he's practicing. So Sally, huge moneymaker for the family. Huge. Garbage industry, all that stuff. Tough guy? No.
No.
Okay. Bowat, big junk guy, one of the original Harlem guys on 116th.
Okay. Yeah.
Known for big heroin pushes. Been around decades. Ton of money. Probably made one of the guys that made the most money in the business. But a tough guy. So they always compared the two. So you would see Bowat in jail, the way he conducted himself.
Yeah.
Man's man. Represented himself and the family as you should. Sally Avellino? No.
No, huh?
An embarrassment.
Interesting that all this came out in prison on who really is, as you called it, a tough guy or not a tough guy or a mess.
Well, look, a guy could stand up. Here's what I can understand. You get a guy like Gaspipe, he'd kill you in a heartbeat, right?
Right.
And then he went on to do what he did. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get a guy like, let's say, Sally Avellino, who would never kill anybody. And he kept his mouth shut. And the way he did his time was a total embarrassment. So, I mean,
Yeah.
do you give Sally Avellino all the creds because he kept his mouth shut? Does it wipe everything away that Gaspipe ever did in his life?
No.
Does it? I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
Maybe when you decide to cooperate, that gets all wiped away. It doesn't count no more.
In real life, maybe it doesn't. I got to think in their lives, once you turn, you turned.
But I can tell you, if Mikey DeSantis is the acting boss today,
Yeah.
They got a good guy. They got the right guy in the right spot because he's level-headed. He's not quick to. I lived with Mikey as a cellmate in Otisville.
Mm-hmm.
Number of pleasure, class act. Just a really good, solid guy. And you could reason with him. Georgie Neck, if it's Georgie Neck or if Georgie Neck's next to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, Georgie is, I would say, definitely earned it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely the guy that would be, I would not be surprised he's the boss. Takes the whole thing over. And they'll be okay. Because Georgie knows both sides. Georgie could be a diplomat and he could be a Gaspipe.
That's a good thing, I would think, if he can be both.
Makes him, in a lot of ways, makes him more dangerous.
Yeah. And in that position, he needs to be both.
And you know what it is too? He knows the rules.
Yeah.
They see a lot of things today.
But a lot of guys didn't play by the rules.
A lot of guys didn't even know the rules.
This is true.
So if you don't know the rules, how do you play by them?
Exactly. You make your own up. That's how you play.
But if he was to be made the guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's meeting with the other families because that's what really counts, the Lucchese's would get the respect back. If a Georgie Neck goes to the table, Mikey DeSantis goes to the table, Anthony Bowat.
They have respect at that table.
Yeah, because now you're bringing guys that are real guys, they're real gangsters. They did their time, and now they got the respect that they earned. It's not like Joe DeFeeti, Danny Cataya, and some other idiot.
Those guys were like fill-ins, or
Yeah, and then what'll happen? They'll have to meet with them and talk to them. But as soon as the meeting's over, and they're driving home, they're going, look at this, look at this jackass.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
So what they got to show them the respect because of the position, but they really don't respect them.
Not behind closed doors. They're not going to talk good about them.
Hi, my man.
Really
Always
good.
a pleasure as usual.
Blessings to you, my brother.
Same here, and see you when I see you.
See you when I see you. I love it.